Blog Talk Radio.
Good evening. This is Paul Lawrence Vann, host of the Wealthy Speaker Show. I want to welcome you to this Wednesday's Assess segment. And this evening I will be interviewing Mr. George Woods, the CEO of Avatoy Incorporated, and also Mr. Tom Allen as they discuss casual gaming and also the involvement of Cloris Leachman, the actress. So this evening's show is going to center on a totally new market that's out there that you could perhaps learn a lot more about and perhaps even invest in the future. This is Paul Lawrence Vann, host of the Wealthy Speaker Show, and the guest call-in number is 646-595-4797. I'm honored to be with you again this evening, and this is really a show about gaming, casual gaming business, and the upcoming gaming cruise that reaches out to the family of casual gamers, in particular the activities that take place in relations to Cloris Leachman, who is, of course, is a renowned actress. And our guest this evening is going to be none other than my distinguished guests, Mr. George Woods and Tom Allen. And I would like to introduce at this time Mr. George Woods. How are you this evening?
Hello?
Yes. George, how are you doing this evening? This is Paul Lawrence Vann, host of the Wealthy Speaker Show.
Hi, this is Tom, George's partner.
That's okay. I have introduced you earlier as well. Welcome to the show.
Well, hello.
All right, doing great this evening as we have a snow-filled day here in the Washington, D.C. metropolitan area.
Yes, it's been an interesting day.
Very much so.
Actually, I've been sitting here trying to pop my ears so I could hear you.
That's quite all right. That's quite all right. It's almost like flying on an airplane sometimes, isn't it? Well, welcome to the show, Tom. And will George also be participating this evening as well?
Yes.
He's still in the traffic.
He should be dialing in as we speak.
Okay, that sounds great. What I'd like to do before I get started with interview questions is to talk a little bit about George and as we wait for him to come on in here. And I'll just have just a synopsis of his background, and then I'll ask you to also talk about yourself as well. Is that okay with you?
Sure.
Okay, sounds good. George Wood has extensive experience in the development of new businesses. From 1981 to 93, he was a consultant to the National Idea Center in Washington, D.C., and in that position, he was the National Product Manager. He has and possesses over 26 years of experience in evaluating the feasibility of new products for the marketplace, as well as obtaining license for patents and trademarks. Now, that sounds very fascinating, so I hope that we'll talk about that a little bit in the show as well. He is also the contributing writer to the Home Business Journal on Internet business. His articles have been published worldwide from offline and online. He was the editor of HBJ, Home Business Journal, and their e-zine. George Wood is also the chairman of the board of directors of the National Academy of Video Gamers, Testers, and Reviewers Group. And I believe George Wood is on the phone with us at this time. Good evening, George. How are you doing?
Good evening. How are you, Paul?
Doing great. And we have
There
Tom.
he is.
Yeah.
Yes, we have Tom on the line as well.
Good.
And I was just reviewing your bio, but since you're on, I'll get you to talk a little bit about yourself. And perhaps at this time, while we give you a little bit of chance to adjust, let's talk a little bit about Tom. Tom, tell us a little bit about yourself real quick here.
Well, I met George in the early 90s. I think it was 93. He had created a show called Flights of Fantasy, which I know he'll tell you about. Oh. And I was doing the video game-related content for that show. So I guess before we go on, he would probably want to tell you more about that.
Okay, that sounds good. And George, again, please welcome to the show. I know you made it through the driving snow and you passed some reindeer on the way in here. Welcome to the Wealthy Speaker Show. And our listeners, they really want to know what you all do there with Avatoy.
Well, we have quite a lot of exciting things that are happening, and it all begins with what Tom was talking about. We started many, many years ago with the Flights of Fantasy television show, and that was one of the first news-oriented type shows that focused on youth culture entertainment. So think of us as like the Entertainment Tonight that dealt with comic books, video games, trading cards, Beanie Babies, stuff that was popular at that time to the youth culture.
Oh, that's fascinating.
And I started it since I was a comic guy, and at that time, remember back in the early to mid-'90s, comic books were supposed to be the next big investment thing.
I remember.
And, it was like, how much is this worth and that worth? And,
right.
for Superman #1 sold for more than $1 million, and, ears started perking up.
Yeah, I did a little collecting in the day.
Mm-hmm. Well, I have over 27,000 of them, so
wow.
I did a bit of collecting in the day. And, but everybody was talking about the big issues that really only the wealthy, could afford to work with. But there was a lot going on in the smaller market where normal people could do things.
Okay.
And as a collector, we'd always talk about the villains and the heroes and the stories, but nobody was actually talking about the business side of things.
Uh-huh.
And so I started the show as to fill that need of kind of dealing with the comic book market the same way that people would hear about the, stocks rising and falling and the commodities markets. And as part of that natural progression from comic books, we needed other things to fill the time with that, so we moved into what other parts that were interesting, which was the video games and then the trading cards and, over time, movies and Beanie Babies. And Tom came in. I was actually first started doing the video games live, playing them live on the screen, and that was really dismal. And Tom came in and said, "I have a better way to do that." And he started working together, like at about the third show. So
yeah, I think fourth one.
Third or fourth show. Saying, here, let's write these as real reviews and let's edit them and let's kind of put some true production value into it.
Of course, the irony is we've come full circle.
Full circle now.
In that after about 6 years of doing it that way, then we did a spin-off show where we focused on trying to find certain games that would actually play well to a live audience, something that would actually be engaging to watch. And it's very, very hard to find a game that is as fun to watch as it is to play.
Oh, no doubt.
And so sort of that search for that kind of material led to the show that I created that we'll be workshopping on the cruise.
Okay.
Go ahead.
And that's how all of this kind of came about, is through the original flight show. We branched off into these other areas as life took us. In fact, a very large portion of the original Flights reviews, because we were one of the first people reviewing video games
on television,
video back in the mid-'90s. We have one of the single largest archival library collections of game reviews from that time period. And over 800 Flights reviews are now up on YouTube.
Wow.
Under gaming in the Clinton years.
That is
that is the most hilarious thing, is how to take stuff that is old and make it fresh again, and you just wrap it around a great slogan like gaming in the Clinton years, and it just now gains this nostalgic factor. And from reading the forum posts and getting emails from people, I mean, people literally just sit there and watch hours and hours worth of this old stuff. And the comments are just hilarious. I mean, we've both been in tears laughing so hard at seeing some of the reactions of this old stuff, because you've got this mix of the 30-somethings and then the teeny boppers, and the teeny boppers weren't around then playing these games, so the perspectives are very different to them. I think we were a little bit obsessive and ahead of our time in wanting to see more cinematic qualities in the game. And there are people that think that's a downside and people that think that that's a natural progression. I would like to see both, non-cinematic games and cinematic games. The Mario games are non-cinematic, but they're just incredibly fun. So you can focus on fun, but you can also focus on a deep, rich experience, or both.
And that's really the way that we see the gaming industry moving is you've kind of got both of those extremes that Tom was talking about, from the very simple to the very rich and high depth, and then the work in the middle.
Yeah.
And it's that middle core. That's where your bulk of your market is. And right now, as big companies like Nintendo have discovered and are using through their research, that is a large market of what's known as casual gamers.
Right.
And
that casual gaming is really where things are today.
That's kind of the way it's moving in that direction.
It's something that I think has gotten
it's more
a better push now. I think that it's going to be like hills and valleys. I think it'll get swallowed up again by the hardcore and until the casual games are able to do something new. The Nintendo Wii is on a major crest right now, and it should be. It's something new.
Yes, it was revolutionary for its time.
Right.
And this is not just domestically here in the United States, but this is global.
Worldwide.
Yeah, worldwide. That's what I thought.
Yeah, this is absolutely worldwide.
And this is
one of those little hidden secrets that the worldwide gaming industry is larger in dollar volume than Hollywood.
That's incredible. Yeah, and it would be because people can take it home. They can have it on the internet. They can go out to an event, a location, say, I don't know if we could say Dave and Buster's, something like that.
Yeah, I would definitely include that as part of the industry.
I'd include that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the modern arcade.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really, like you said, it's a global dynamic, and it looks as though both Tom, you, and George have both been on the transformation side of things. You sent it from the concept stage all the way to the full development and now even more creation, especially bringing things online now.
Well, it's been really interesting as I've gotten older. I mean, I used to be hardcore when I was younger, but now that I'm older, I don't have as much time to play. So I do find myself trending more to the casual stuff. But the deep, rich experiences, there are maybe a handful a year that are just so compelling that you just literally can't stop playing. So I would say that I still deal with both to a large degree, although on the business side, we both spend most of our time with the casual side.
Yeah. Now, that's something interesting. I took a note on that when you were speaking earlier, and you were saying that somewhat in the beginning it was almost as if most of the gamers and people in that industry were approaching it from a hobby almost to a certain extent. And then you transition it over to more of a business and tracking the market and the different segments, both domestic and international.
Yeah, I think one of the things we saw in the 90s is a lot of developers are making games for themselves and not necessarily thinking about new people to go after.
Yeah, and there was a lot of criticism, even in some of our old reviews back then, where we would be talking about how the developers just seemed to put something in just because they thought it was cool, but it didn't necessarily move or progress the game forward in ways.
Right, this obsession with Easter eggs. And I would want to say that to anyone who aspires to get into the industry, a lot of students and indie developers, they should try to come up with an original idea and not do what they're used to seeing and what they're used to playing with their friends and replicating those types of experiences. Try to come up with something totally different because innovation is always what's needed in the industry, and that's what will make you stand out. There's been examples of kids that come up with an original game and it lands on the Nintendo DS. That's a rare, very rare example, but it has happened.
And their new first name is called Rich. Rich, how you doing? Yeah, that's really phenomenal.
The game was Tringo, as a matter of fact. If that's the example I was thinking of.
And the other side of that too is keeping that with doing something original. Is look at the Nintendo Wii. That was the single largest selling device, period, for the Christmas buying season.
But look at how that came about. That came about not because the developers were coming up with ideas for themselves. It was a dire need for Nintendo in Japan. They saw the writing on the wall. Their population in Japan is aging so rapidly. They said, if we are going to survive in the next 20 years, we have got to go after older gamers who are more casual. But it's such a fascinating thing to try to get that to catch on with the general public, because you're dealing with people who either haven't played or they're introduced to it socially. They don't have subscriptions to gaming magazines where they review this stuff. Casual games generally aren't reviewed because those consumers don't do research on their purchases. They're not going out and checking all the ratings and this and that and analyzing the graphics.
So they're typically purchasing what's considered hot at the time.
Right, and a lot of times that's just from being exposed to it through friends. So it's a totally different, very challenging marketing challenge. But Nintendo has the brand name behind them, so when they get into that arena, they can push it. But it was still new territory for them, and they succeeded because it was something that, even beyond their wildest expectations, turned into a huge party phenomenon.
Wow.
So,
for our listeners, how large is this industry? If it's larger than some of the markets that you talked about earlier, dollar-wise, exactly how large is this industry? I guess from a dollar perspective, is there kind of a ballpark for U.S. Domestic sales or anything such as that?
I would say at least $20 billion.
At least.
That's enough.
At least.
That's why all the kids' first name is Rich. Well, I tell you, that this is really fascinating, and you did bring up the issue about the Wii. And as you stated, the baby boomers in this country are rapidly cresting as well. We have, over 303 million people in this country, and a lot of them, the baby boomers, are just coming off the rolls there from a company standpoint. So when we look at your mission statement, what is your mission statement as CEO of Avatoy? Is it Avatoy? Avatoy, exactly.
Think of it as since we're using games and we're having fun, it was kind of like, think of it as if the British were coming on and say, here, Avatoy.
I see.
And then also it's a play on Avatar, which is a gaming character for those.
That's what I was thinking about.
For the gaming world.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking about. Yeah, see, I just dated myself there.
Yeah, that's okay. It took me a while. It took me a while to get into that thoroughly too.
Oh wow!
But and it's and that's part of the issues that we have, and part of our mission statement, which is that our job is to really help expose the public in general to the fact that gaming is not a four-letter word.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
Most people think it is.
That's
it doesn't mean Las Vegas.
It's true.
If
it was limited to that, it wouldn't be that much.
Exactly. And this is not the root of all evil, like they always put into the news.
Exactly.
And that there are this type of technology, and what they're really doing is they're demonizing the technology because of the results of individuals.
Correct.
And where it's taking the technology and showing how this technology is being used in a solid, positive way in all manner of things that range anywhere from pure, simple entertainment, like with the Wii, all the way into very sophisticated, three-dimensional virtual reality simulations that are being used right now at Walter Reed Hospital, at San Diego Hospital, for helping veterans from the wars recover from their injuries, like the Iraq veterans and post-traumatic stress.
Exactly. And in fact, I saw that on television.
That's another great example of irony, because critics of television complain that it desensitizes viewers to violence, but that's precisely the point of the therapeutic applications that George is talking about, where they recreate the horrific experiences of the veterans.
Right.
And it desensitizes to them. It desensitizes it for them, having to relive it, and basically they're able to objectify the experience, objectify the pain, the trauma. But it's something that's so simple when you think about it, but it just seems so repulsive to think about it at first. But then when you really think about it, well, it's not that bad. And wow, isn't it effective?
And
that's very true.
And the results have been really dynamic for that. And that's those are the things that we'll be demonstrating on the cruise. The other
excellent.
The other part of this end of the gaming industry that people aren't all that familiar with is what is called, I'm going to put it in quotes, serious gaming.
Sure.
And in the old days, before video games existed as we know them, the same type of philosophy used to be called simulation.
That's correct.
And so the military has been using some form of gaming-type simulation for
flight training?
Yes.
Yeah, because I've participated on a number of those simulators myself, having spent 20 years in the Air Force.
Mm-hmm. So you know what we mean about that.
Absolutely.
And this is the other aspect that's being now it's being used very much as in education, and it's also being used in medical, especially in teaching. There are some very critical types of operations. There's one of them where you have to scrape out plaque in the carotid artery, and the doctors cannot be certified to do that operation because one slip and your patient is dead.
Exactly.
They cannot be certified to do that operation unless they have qualified on simulators.
Simulators, exactly. So, and that also holds true for the aircraft that the Air Force and some of the other military are using as well from a remote location, let's say in Nevada,
mm-hmm.
and they have aircraft, unmanned aircraft, UAVs in the Middle East.
Mm-hmm.
And that's also part of it. They actually recruit students from high school and our college who are experts at that.
Well, I was actually told by somebody high up in the military that the Navy especially grants promotions faster to people who have gaming experience.
Correct. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I've seen that.
And that's because you're able to take in, gaming improves your reasoning abilities, it improves your eye-hand coordination, it improves your reaction times, and these are all life skills that are now being understood a little bit better. And for somebody in a high-stress situation like that, it's the folks who have those kinds of skills are the ones who can perform on mark much better.
Absolutely.
And those, especially now that so much of the military is electronic, that this is becoming a greater response to the need.
Definitely. That sounds really great. Let me see if I can encourage my listeners to call in. This is Paul Lawrence Vann, host of the Wealthy Speaker Show. The guest call-in number is 646-595-4797. My distinguished guest this evening is Mr. George Woods, who is CEO of Avatoy, and also Mr. Tom Allen. And they have an incredible program and business company here, and I wanted to share that with you listeners, so I want you to all give a call in at this time. And this gives me an opportunity also to bring up the gaming cruise that you mentioned a little bit earlier, and it's going to be a first-of-its-kind casual gaming cruise, and that's called NAVGTR, and that's for the National Academy of Video Gamer Testers and Reviewers Corporation.
Mm-hmm. Tom is the executive director of that.
Director of that, exactly. And tell us about the role that Cloris Leachman is playing A lot of our listeners may not know Cloris Leachman. I happen to know her. Again, I dated myself. She's an outstanding actress, and I wanted them to learn about her involvement with this program, with the cruise coming up.
Well, yeah, definitely. People of your age and older would recognize her, and young people will recognize her once they're told everything that she's done recently. In fact, they're kind of amazed that she is one and the same person once you tell her tell people all the recent roles, particularly Beer Fest, which is a Broken Lizard film where she played Great Gam Gam. I think that was a Norwegian character. Let's see. She was with Adam Sandler in The Longest Yard. She was the secretary that Adam had to sleep with reluctantly.
Exactly. Yes,
well, not sleep with, but play with.
Exactly.
Spanker and so forth.
And then, of course, for those...
It's just a movie. It's just a movie.
That's a movie. And then for those who are a little older but still not quite in the old range, she was, of course, Frau Brüller in...
Young Frankenstein.
Right.
And that's one of the roles that she says that she still gets recognized for.
Yeah, one of her most recognized, definitely. Yeah. She was also, for the kids, she was in Scary Movie 4. She was Mrs. North, I believe was the character's name, and she had to get a urine sponge bath. I don't know why I didn't see the movie.
I see.
But she was not aware that she was getting a urine sponge bath, I don't think.
Okay. They have to pay her extra, of course.
Well, those movies that get... even I was shocked at some of the stuff in those movies. Especially when the weigh-ins got involved.
Exactly. I tell you, it's really an incredible cast that you have there in terms of... I know this is going to really create quite a stir for people getting on this cruise.
Well, she's pretty outrageous. She's not afraid of anything.
Exactly.
She's we're always afraid with dealing with celebrities of how they're going to react to games and whether they especially if they haven't played them before. But that's what the Nintendo Wii is all about, is getting non-gamers excited and playing with the grandkids, and actually half the time they end up beating the crap out of their grandkids,
exactly.
which is, I'm sure, what she's going to do. We're told that she will be fiercely competitive.
Well,
there will be blood injuries.
That's why we like her, because she is an older person who is vibrant, full of energy, and is willing to step out of that little comfort zone and say, hey, people, look how much fun you can have. Look at this new technology. Do not be afraid of the little box on the TV.
Exactly. Don't be afraid.
Let's get out there and have some fun. And it's something that goes right back in full circle, because in the very early days when Pong came out, the early video games were always used as family products.
It's fascinating to look at the advertising of how video games were depicted in the television ads back then. If you go look at the ads for Pac-Man, you'll see Grandma sitting around, and the whole family sitting around cheering on little Johnny as he's playing the game, and they show Grandma playing. And these days, what are the commercials like? Oh, some zombie character, no one else in the room but him, and then he gets sucked into the television because it's so immersive.
Exactly.
It's just a total 180, and the hardcore is just taking over the world, and now the softcore is staking its claim.
Come back.
So it'll always be an ongoing war. No one will win, and that's the way it should be.
Each one will be challenging.
That brings about creativity. Could I get you all to provide your website address so people can learn more about you, your contact information, phone numbers, things like that? And
surely.
That way the listeners can also learn more about you. But I read quite a bit of information, some of the research you provided, and it's really in depth in terms of what you all have done, your backgrounds. Most people looking at this basically could say, if they read it, they would think that you're in Hollywood every day.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I mean, it's really, you all have incredible backgrounds, both George and Tom. Your backgrounds are really incredible.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
It's been a wild ride, and many companies and many properties. It's been fun.
And that's really kind of one thing for Tom brought it up for the listeners is that, you know, if at first you don't succeed, try again.
Yeah, exactly. Never give up.
Just keep pushing, and eventually the formula clicks. Because we've had quite a number of shows that didn't quite work either.
Yeah.
The way that we thought they would.
The key is to do what you want, but figure out why people aren't responding, and then incorporate that into what you're doing, because you will end up liking it better, even if it's not what you originally wanted. But you know, to do something you want and then completely abandon it because it's not working, you know, you gotta be more, reaching out more and trying to solicit that feedback and find out what you need to do, or just look at it as objectively as you can. Okay. Our television show was for 6 years. It was hard to get that picked up on a major network or major cable channel. What's the problem? You know, celebrities aren't into gaming.
Exactly.
The experience of watching the games isn't something that can be shared by the non-gamers. It's not compelling for them. So, you know, for us, it was finding something that gamers and non-gamers could appreciate, watch, and enjoy, and you can use that as your starting ground to expand into other properties and shows that tailor more to the hardcore. And certainly the internet, there's a place for everyone.
Yeah, don't be afraid to throw it out and see what kind of responses you get.
So you actually capture a niche as a result of perhaps a particular game or component of it not actually really being received that well from a purchasing standpoint or from a participation standpoint.
No, we're more along the lines of think of it as navigators kind of hitting the niche is more along the lines of like the Golden Globes.
Got it.
For the industry, and so it's more the professionals who are giving their considered opinions and votes as to what they think is the best, along with our 2 cents worth.
Okay.
Right. You've got the Navigator program is a niche, and that's by program I mean the awards program. It's very industry focused. It does skew to the hardcore a lot in terms of what's recognized. The Flights of Fantasy show was also a niche at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So we've been really looking, moving forward, on how to break out of the niche, not to necessarily get out of it entirely and pull out, but how to expand from it.
Okay.
Or start other
niches,
other posts, so to speak, and then bring them all together.
Yeah.
Got it.
And that's where the cruise comes in, because the cruise is a good exposition of many of the different types of gaming technologies and how they're being used for good instead of evil. And this way, people can see and participate in some of the casual games with Cloris, who is going to be competing with some people. We also have the Gaming Granny, who is another real hoot for that.
The YouTube Gaming Granny.
Gaming Granny.
She's gotten a lot of press because she bridges the gap. She is much older. She's, I think, 71, but she plays the hardcore games.
Wow.
So she is gun-toting granny all the way.
She is.
Going from one extreme
call
to
a hired gun.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to bet against her.
I see. So this cruise is, who is the cruise line?
It's going to be Carnival.
Carnival, excellent line. And what are the dates and the locations for the cruise?
It's November 14th to 17th. And I know your listeners are probably being driven nuts because we said we would give our contact info, so let's do that now.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
And they can get information on the cruise there.
Exactly. Get them on there and fill up the ship.
Specifically the cruise, they can find that out at Avatoy, AVATOY.com. And then the awards organization, which will have a presence on the cruise, is NAVGTR.org. And that stands for National Academy of Video Game Testers and Reviewers.
Yes. This is the place we want everyone listening, and to contact all your friends, your colleagues, everybody, and have them sign up for this. I'm also looking on this information. It takes off from Long Beach, California, and then goes into Ensenada, Mexico.
That's right.
That's correct.
All right, and then it features a performance by Video Games Live.
I was just going to say that, yeah. that is something that is also unique, because it's a performance of video game music that would be recognizable to, of course, the hardcore game players who play Mario, Zelda, Halo, Final Fantasy. Half of that means nothing to non-gamers, of course. But what's absolutely amazing, because these concerts are held all over the world, is the kids bring their family. They kind of have to if they want to go. And the entire family is just blown away. Even if they've never heard the music before, it's still great music, and they can't believe how great it is. Hey, this came from a video game. It sounds like it could be Vivaldi, but hey, this is Beyond Good and Evil or whatever video game. So that's been also something that has been a real eye-opener for people who haven't played games. Once they experience that, they really start to appreciate games and understand that it's not a time waster any more than movies are. So
absolutely, because people still have to use their mind to think. You still have to think.
Yes,
and you have to have the hand-eye coordination, as you stated before. And from the studies and research that I've seen, when a person remains active, that helps them to provide them with a lot of benefits.
That's a very good point.
Quality of life. Yeah, absolutely.
Very much. And really, that was part of what got the Nintendo rolling, is because they had to look at an older audience in order to survive 20 years down the road. And part of what they did was they looked at the research that was going on with brain, what they call brain training now.
That's right.
And and they were one of the first ones to start publicly bringing out games and devices to do that with, and that was with the Brain Age.
Yeah, it's mass market.
And they were the first mass marketers.
Okay.
And so they really started this whole part that now everybody is seeing. Oh yeah, and
they've sold a lot of systems with the Brain Age training programs, and it's been a #1 seller for many months for that system for the Nintendo DS. That was written up in AARP magazine, so it's a pretty significant milestone for the industry and for Nintendo.
Well, you're not
but I can't help but marvel too at how, at least from my viewpoint, they were very, very strategic in how they were able to overcome that fear with older markets and with women, and because there's two things I notice about it that I don't know if is obvious to most people right off the bat. But think about it. It's white. That's pretty new for the video game industry to have a white console. I know the Xbox 360 is white, but I think that came out just before the Wii. But it's white, which is the color of many household appliances. So it's a color that appeals to women. It's definitely more appealing than black, let's say. The controller looks like a television remote control, which everyone in the world is comfortable with picking up and holding and using. It's not this humongous controller with 16 buttons that's bigger than your hand. It looks like you need a license to drive it. So that's been a major factor for its success, is because nothing about it, all the fear is taken away, because nothing scares them away.
So they make it user-friendly in
right.
touch, in the feel, and then as well as in operation.
Right.
All right.
So they've been really successful at figuring out what those barriers are and making sure that they're not there.
Right. Did anyone anticipate the multi-generational value that would be derived from the gaming?
Oh, I think Nintendo did, because in product testing that stuff, I'm sure around the office they noticed what it did. They may not have anticipated. Well, they said they didn't anticipate the degree to which parties have driven the popularity of the system. I mean, there's a trend of Wii parties, actually throwing Wii parties. But I think definitely the generational aspect was planned from the beginning. And like I said, since the population of Japan was aging so quickly, that was something that was a conscientious part of their plans.
I think so too, and the beauty of the Wii, and this I'm sure was part of their plans, is the Wii is simple, it is easy to use, and anybody can start playing and enjoying it within about 5 minutes. And what that'll do is ultimately build confidence in people in playing games, and eventually they will be looking for more richer experiences and challenges that the Wii does not provide.
Exactly. So what could end up happening here is that the Wii brings in all these new gamers, but 5-10 years from now, they may all be going over to whatever huge monstrosity Sony has released at the time. So they're creating casual gamers that many will eventually become hardcore gamers. And I have to say, one of the things that I think the industry should be careful of is, one thing that's missing from the casual games is this compelling emotional aspects of it. Right now, you said earlier that the games make you think, but I would say the casual games do that as far as a puzzle type thinking, but the hardcore games really make you think more psychologically and emotionally. There are games like BioShock where you're presented with these moral choices almost in the how you advance through the game. Well, do I really want to do this in order to be able to do that? Should I do that? Will I be penalized for it? These kinds of choices they've used in hardcore games for a while, but I think only now is it starting to get really, really deep and complex, and to the point where it's saturating the entire feeling of the game.
Ah, I see. That's very, very interesting, and I think for many people, I can remember over the Christmas holidays on the local channels, here Channel 4, I believe, and they actually had a show, a segment on it, 10-15 minutes about the Wii and putting it in senior citizens facilities, senior centers, and I just thought to myself, some people were bowling, some were playing tennis, and you have to believe that, wow, that has to be very user-friendly.
It's very rewarding.
And that's another example of a barrier that's not there.
It's not there.
People don't need to learn how to play bowling. They know how to bowl.
Oh, they know how to
know how to play tennis, and that's why I think we started with these easier types of common sports-related games that everybody knows how to do.
Right.
Because we do gaming at our senior center in Bowie.
Right.
And that was one of the things that really was rewarding for us, is as we started showing people how they got involved in the games, then they would start coming up to us, and you could just see that initially there's that kind of like that deer in the headlights look for a minute or two.
Exactly. Sure.
And
like,
then once they started getting into playing some of these, then that would change, and they get this big smile on their face. They start giggling and laughing, and you see these wonderful, very seniors, turn back into little kids.
And
I got to say that has been so rewarding to see, and I would really recommend to the gamers out there. It's just the weirdest thing when you introduce your grandparents or anyone that is just totally non-traditional, as you would never expect to enjoy this stuff. Introduce the Wii to them, and you will see just some great reactions. And I just can't explain it. It's very enjoyable to see new people get into it, because it's totally different than when you play with your friends. You don't see that same discovery in them.
That's right.
But to see that is pretty amazing. To see someone discover something so compelling to them for the first time.
And the interesting part
that's
is
why they light up like little kids. And
that's the interesting part is that we know that these games were not invented during the time of the youth or the formative years of our parents, grandparents. And now that they're in their later years, it still can make it a part of a family event, which is great. And I think that strengthens the family in many ways. Whereas before, especially the younger children, they look at our grandma, grandpops, they can't do anything, but now they're finding out they can not only do it, but they can do more.
Yep. Exactly. And with people living longer and being more active and being healthier just in general, that people are finding there is quality of life that this can expand into much longer than there used to be.
Yeah, it's the modern board game.
Yeah.
The family that plays together stays together.
Yeah.
The family that veges out in front of the TV and doesn't talk to each other, doesn't say anything together at dinner. It's a big difference.
No doubt about it. And for the people that, again, you want to give them some consideration, I already know right now, both George and Tom, that I'm going to have you on another show, and I'm going to take this all the way. If you don't mind, if we can set up some times in the coming months, maybe once a month leading up to the cruise, so I can get you on the show, and we can talk about other aspects of it.
We'd be happy to do that. There's always something new developing.
Yeah, because I feel that what you have, your programs, your games, and of course your cruise coming up, that it's great for the community as a whole, for all people in this country. I mean, to me, this is just incredible. As you can tell, I'm very into it. I'm psyched. I also want to go on record to say that because of such great marketing and going into the Christmas season, my family, we tried to purchase a Wii, and we couldn't find one to purchase.
In the second year, no less. The second Christmas
year.
Yeah.
I tried to get one, and they told me that they had sold out through the Christmas season, and they were not getting restocked until February 29th.
Exactly.
And who knows, I'll get like 3,
That's true. So I think that it's a marvelous concept, and I know that there's even going to be more coming in the future. So again, would you please provide your contact information so people can, again, look at your site and also give them an opportunity to sign up for the cruise, because I know that even though it's February now, it's going to be here before they know it.
Yeah, they would have to sign up by June
pretty
15th.
quick.
Right.
Okay. It's www.avatoy, that's AVATOY.com, and NAVGTR.org, NAVGTR.org.
And I also want to say that when we start looking at the gaming industry itself and where it's going in the future, where do you see the casual gaming and hardcore gaming going over the next 5 to 10 years? Is there kind of a forecast?
I wouldn't dare predict 10, but I would predict 5. I do think when it's all said and done, Sony will probably win the console war in the end. And if you've been hearing this entire conversation, you're like, how the heck can he say that after what he's been saying?
Okay.
But Nintendo can, Sony can easily replicate everything that Nintendo is doing on its current console. Nintendo can't replicate what Sony is doing on its current console. That doesn't mean they need to. It depends on how demanding their new consumers are going to be with the content they provide. There's been a lot of criticism of junk software for the Wii. So these new consumers that are brought in, maybe they're going to have to start doing research to make sure they pick the right games, and then maybe we'll see more critical analysis of some of these smaller games, particularly for the not only for the Wii but for online games on the internet. There's a whole lot of stuff out there that needs more exposure, and it's stuff that is a great entry point for all kinds of people.
Oh, excellent. And when you look at going out to find someone on your team, let's say if you were looking for people with experience for your industry and your company, what would be their profile for the type of person you would select to come on board on your team to help you do what you do so well?
Well, we definitely need all types of course, programmers, folks who are used to thinking and working in a visual type language.
Okay.
And we also need somebody who...
Yes, great hackers who can just rip apart something and...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And put it back together again and find out all kinds of things that you can do. There's all kinds of things you can do with the Wii that you're not supposed to be able to do.
Sure.
And they're all legal. Well, it may be illegal as far as Nintendo is concerned, but other than that, it's legal.
But check with
basically, you're taking it to the next level of its greatness, right?
Sure. No, actually, that's hopefully Nintendo will embrace that type of stuff because I can really see that adding to the independent groundswell for game development.
That's important. Is that the independents over what we were talking about? The independents are now going to be looking at taking probably a larger hand in how the market is going to go.
Yeah, especially with innovation.
Yes, and some of the people who are associated with large companies, for example, Budgie, who did Halo, has now gone independent.
I see.
And
David Jaffe, who was he ran one of the studios for Sony. He's now gone independent. He's got a big deal with Sony, but he owns his studio.
So I think you'll see just like in the movie industry, the innovation and the real stretching the boundaries will be coming out first from the independents, and then being incorporated into it by the larger companies down the road.
And what you're also going to see, what you'll see more of in the next 5 years, like you were saying, is Hollywood directors and celebrities setting up their own game production companies. Ridley Scott has done that. John Woo has done that. Right. So I think you're going to see more of that, so that they own the intellectual property that's created around their ideas, and of course they don't have the rich background of game development, so they will, of course, partner with
people who do.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
People do.
So it's called outsourcing.
In a good joint venturing and everything else. Yeah, that's really fascinating, and I think when it comes down to, did you all, both George and Tom, ever think that you would be involved in something of this magnitude, say 20 years ago? Did you ever think that? Wow,
no way.
No way. No, even when we were doing the first TV show, the Flight Show, I think we were just thinking, this would be cool, let it run its course, and that would be that. But
a lot of it just comes with down to this dog with a bone mentality.
Sure.
Not wanting to give up.
Yes, never give up, never surrender.
I love it.
And if it doesn't work, you find out what does.
Yeah. Well, that's one thing.
But something you can still enjoy.
Yeah. Sure. That's one thing I always talk to my listeners about for each show, is showing them ways to be empowered. And I believe this evening that you've empowered a lot of people to continue to follow their passion, because when I'm listening to both of you talk, you're both very passionate, and I'm being, I'm keeping it down low. You are very passionate about what you do, and I think that's great. I think that's why you're doing what you're doing, because you're passionate about it. And in other words, if you have a setback, you are able to create a comeback to do even more in the industry. Exactly. So in terms of the cruise itself, now I looked at Cloris Leachman's background, and she's, of course, won an Academy Award as well as an Emmy Award.
She's won 9 Emmys.
9 Emmys.
In fact, no female performer has won more.
Wow, that's just incredible.
And she's won a Golden Globe, I'm fairly certain.
That's right. Yeah, she's won a Golden Globe. So when we start to look at her background and her body of work, how were you able to work with her to bring her on board? Because I know she's in really high demand.
Yeah, I guess a lot of people are wondering, why would she do this? It's just a great thing to bring attention to this industry for people that ordinarily would not pay attention. And I think she does that. She will cause a lot of people to take a second look here, and just if you think we have passion, wait till you see her creaming the grandkid.
Yeah. All right.
So
her body of work, her more recent body of work especially, is she's always been taking these outrageous kind of forward roles, and so this is the natural step in the progression of what she's been up to.
Wow.
So it's
if you look at her profile on IMDb.com, there's so much stuff that she's done where you can see that this would make sense for her. She's even done Beavis and Butthead voiceover, so she's done just about anything you could possibly imagine. She was on the Muppets, which was funny.
Right.
And
Mary Tyler Moore.
Oh, absolutely.
Last Picture Show.
And one thing I definitely want to make sure we mention is that she is a pianist.
Yes.
So, I think she won one of her early Emmys for a performance in a variety show.
Exactly.
So, she really can do just about anything, and we're gonna see if she can
do some video game music.
Yeah, there is a famed viral video of this guy who tours in the concert Video Games Live, where he did a blindfolded version of playing Mario music. He played the Mario theme blindfolded. So we're going to see if she can beat Martin, that's the guy's name, beat him at his own game, and see if she can play that theme blindfolded. So we're going to have a lot of fun.
Oh, that's going to be great. And I see what she did win an Oscar for the Last Picture Show. So
yes,
that lets people know the type of people that you're working with, that you're world-class organization.
That is a timeless movie. Everyone should check that out.
Exactly.
It's absolutely amazing to see. I'm going to turn 30 this week, and so when I see that movie, when I saw it for the first time, I was stunned at some of these actors that I knew very well, but I just never realized they were that young at one point. It's amazing how young Sybil Shepherd looks, Jeff Bridges. I'd never seen them young. So there's a lot of actors in that movie that their big roles were not in their younger years. So when you see them young for the first time, it's amazing.
And for the really older folks out there, there's another bit of trivia of one of the roles she played is that she was Timmy's mother right before June Lockhart in Lassie.
Exactly. Well, I tell you, I've had a very great time interviewing the both of you, George Wood and Tom Allen. I have just 1 minute left on this show. I want to, first of all, thank you both for showing on this interview, showing up and talking about your program and your games. And I'll get you back on. I'll contact you to get you back on shows leading up to the cruise. So I want to thank you very much this evening. You have a great evening. I enjoyed it. I know my listeners did, and I'll be in touch with you soon for the interview in March.
Well, thank you very much for having us. We appreciate the opportunity and everything to go ahead and let people know that there's a worthy cause out there.
Okay. Thank you both, and have a great evening. All right. Take care.
Take care.
All righty. Goodbye.
Bye.
There you have it, listeners. I had Mr. George Wood, CEO of Avatoy, and also I had Tom Allen. I want to thank you for being great listeners, and what a show. We'll have them on again for the next several months leading up to the cruise. Have a wonderful evening. Paul Lawrence Vann saying goodbye.